Hey, what's good, Roughnecks fans, and welcome back to the Rough 'em Up podcast. I'm your co-host, Cullen Watkins, and I'm here with the A-Train, Arlington Lane. And folks, this is episode number 10. 10 weeks of XFL football, 10 weeks of the Rough 'em Up podcast. Arlington, that's crazy. 10 weeks of this and 2 South Division champs. How are we feeling?
Right. For the H, baby, for the Ace, XFL South champions. I am proud of this team. Big win that they had this past week against the Vegas Vipers. It's a needed win, but also it was that was a morale win, man. They needed that for themselves going into this final game against Arlington and then getting ready for the XFL South Division Championship in 2 weeks.
So, of course, the Houston Roughnecks defeated the Las Vegas Vipers 28-21. They advanced to 6-3 on the season, and they clinched home field advantage, just like Arlington said, for the South Division Championship game in 2 weeks. Now, sure, we don't really know technically. We don't know who we're playing, but we have pretty good guesses. More than likely, it's going to be the Arlington Renegades. If it's San Antonio, you can, I don't know, take my money or whatever it is. It's not going to be San Antonio, in my opinion. And I think you can agree with me on that too, Arlington. But yeah, I got the old Roughnecks hat with me. I have the old for the H. We're repping H-Town. We're repping the Roughnecks all day today. But let's dive deep into that game. So, of course, me and Arlington were both there in the press box. Your thoughts on the game?
Again, big win. It got scary at times because it was looking like it was going to be one-sided at one point. Then they stepped it up in the second half. Didn't allow a touchdown, didn't allow a point to be scored in that third quarter. Did get a little bit of a rally, but it was too little too late at that point. Great effort by Vegas to try and make that more interesting than it needed to be. But for the nearly 11,000 that were in attendance that game, who were bearing the hot weather, it was a good win for the good old Houston Roughnecks.
It was. And let's talk about defense. We've been talking about our defense a lot in these past 2 wins that we've gotten. Man, we won that game because of defense. I'm just going to say it right now. We won that game from defense. You had the 2 fumble return touchdowns that got us back into the game. And then, of course, the Brycen Alleyne, that beautiful rushing, and Max Borgi too, that beautiful rushing attack just sort of closed that game out. But man, our the fumble recovers, and we didn't get an interception, which is pretty weird for this defense, but the fumble recoveries, it's crazy.
Yeah. And that was their quote unquote offense, scoring those on the defensive end. And that was key because they weren't making any inroads on offense. Of course, Brandon Silvers with 2 interceptions in the game. It's okay, but you said the defense saved you. Also, the rushing attack, saved it as well. So, great job by Max Borgi and great job by Brycen Alleyne. Amazing job with actually switching it up a bit because the passing attack wasn't working out enough. So they were able to go and utilize the run because a lot of times what we've seen in the XFL, when it's not working, teams will abandon it. When teams abandon it, you become a one-dimensional team. And then it makes it easier for defenses to adjust and to make plays, better plays when you have it just literally as a passing attack. So great job by A.J. Smith to adjust, allow those guys to utilize the rushing attack and make a big win for the Houston Roughnecks.
And I think that's what I love the most about this game is the adjustments that were made. And we were just on the X-Fan show, and I was wanting to say this when we were talking about the Roughnecks game, but I wanted to save it for this. You know, I think this game, sure, it wasn't the prettiest. We should have. I'm not even going to say we should have beat this Vegas team by more, because a win is a win. And Vegas, they've looked pretty good now the past couple of weeks. So can't really say that we should have beat them by any more than we did. But I will say this. Going into the playoffs, we're hearing a lot about, if the Roughnecks even get to the championship, they're just going to get beat by DC, St. Louis, Seattle, whatever, because we've lost against almost every single North Division opponent. But this game, I think, showed not only Houston fans, but the league as a whole, that sure, the Roughnecks, we won't always have our passing attack. All right, we won't always. Brandon Silvers had his worst game of the year, 105 yards, 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. Worst game of the year by far. But we still found a way to win. That's what separates championship teams from mediocre teams. Mediocre teams, Arlington, something doesn't work, the whole team starts falling apart. But a team like Houston, why they're going to get to the championship is because even though their passing game wasn't working, their bread and butter wasn't working, they still found a way to win. I think this game showed it to all of us. Offense wasn't working, bam, defense, bam, running game, and we win the game. That's going to be a decision point in these playoffs, to be completely honest.
And being able to get forced fumbles and sending them both back for touchdowns was very key, because momentum was all on Vegas's side, especially during the first half. And it was looking like that Vegas was going to steal a win. And even though Arlington lost to DC, it would have put Houston at 5-4, but it wouldn't have mattered anyway, because it just would have been a game back for each team at that point. But nothing to really worry about at this point, because Houston won, Arlington lost, and San Antonio won their game, which gave the XFL South Division crown to the Houston Roughnecks. So they have that, and now they have a chance to be a representative for the South comes to the XFL Championship May 13th.
And we were both at the press conference. Jalen McClendon, we got to give him the benefit of the doubt. He did a great game. You know, what are your thoughts on him? I know in the X-Fan show, you asked me my thoughts on him, but what are your thoughts on him? Because I do want to cover him, even though we're not a Las Vegas podcast. I've been a big fan of him recently. You know, I think he's really proven himself. So what are your thoughts on him and in the game specifically against a good defense in the Roughnecks?
Getting to see him in person was great to see. And I've seen him on television, and he done an amazing job in the 2-3 games prior. And he is, I have to agree with Rob Woodson, he's a baby. And he has the arm, he has the footwork, he has the speed, and he didn't throw any interceptions against the Roughnecks. So that showcases that he can be a smart quarterback in this league. And, you know, potentially he wants to get to the next level. He'll be able to do that, but it's going to take a bit more time for him. But right now, all arrows are lining him to be QB1 for the future, for at least next season for the Vipers. Like I think I think Rob Woodson did not really understand what he had, you know, in his quarterback room. And now that Luis Perez is gone, and, you know, Brent Hundley did not quite work out as much when he was with Dwayne Taylor, Ray Sherman has been able to really work with him, and he's done a fantastic job so far.
And flipping to the other team, our side now, what's been up with Brandon Silvers?
I think it's, you know, him dealing with those injuries and stuff is kind of been lingering and causing him to make throws that it's just out of character. And granted, last week they were able to pull off a win in San Antonio in overtime, which I'm hearing a lot of Brahma talk that they don't want to face them if San Antonio were to get that second spot. I'm not really worried about it, but I think it's just that time he was getting reacclimated, and he's doing it again. I think this last game he has against Arlington is not going to be the same way. You got to remember, Arlington just lost their leading tackler in Donald Payne for the remainder of the season. So they have a big loss on their hands there. Don't get me wrong. You still got to deal with a guy like Joe Powell that can change a game and make some stuff happen. Because granted, even though they lost against DC, that just lets you know, Roughneck fans should know, that even if they do face off against DC in the championship game, it's not going to be the same way that I don't think it's going to be the same way that they had when they played them the last time. They're beatable. So just because they're 8-1 sitting right now, a lot of shakiness is looking within that DC team. But don't get me wrong, I love our team, and just gotta patch up some more work. And AJ and Brandon need to be back on the same page again, so that way they can be more effective as they start to make this playoff run.
And we saw what the running game can do. We've seen whenever we've relied on the running game throughout this whole season. I remember that Orlando game when we were in Orlando, our passing game just stopped, but the running game got us back on track. I feel the same way with this pass game against Las Vegas. But we are still, I get the vibe that we are still missing a guy like John Trey Kirkland, a deep threat. You know, we saw Brandon Silvers go up to Deontay Burnett multiple times. Didn't hit any one of the shots. You know, what are your thoughts on that? Are we going to you think we should continue to still look for the deep guy, the deep passing game like we did earlier in the season, or do we shorten things up now?
Switching it up a bit. I think at this rate, and looking at the stats, you know, there wasn't many big yardage because of, you know, Brandon Silver's only throwing for 105 yards. Burnett with only 5 yards. Cedric Bird with only 13. I think now it's almost going to have to be like some checkdowns. Checkdowns to get receivers involved and then go deep. You got to utilize the receivers the way that, you know, you want to make sure you get the first down. So they've done that. They've been working at that, then try to go for the deep ball. But having a playmaker like Jonte Kirkland it took a step back. So in my opinion, go conservative. That's just me. Because make the plays, get the first downs, move the ball downfield. Also, get the possession. Keep possession of the ball. You know, run the clock. That's your time. Give your defense a lot of time to rest and get them ready before the next series. And then score at that. Don't just have the ball for a lengthy period of time and you don't score. You got to make sure you score when you do that. And then defense feeds off of that, and they'll go out and do their hardest to make sure that they make stops and make plays when needed.
Which we know they can do. But I have to agree with you, especially against this game against Arlington. I'd love to see back to basics approach. Everyone does their job. Don't turn the football over, Brandon. Hold on to the football receivers. Back to basics. You know, make sure you complete the basics of football. Then going into playoffs, you're ready. You're ready. I'm still ready for a Brandon Silvers bounce back game, like you said, Arlington, ever since that injury. But speaking of this upcoming game against Arlington, of course, we're going to be in Arlington. I'm not really worried about a home field advantage for Arlington because, you know, I'm not a big fan of Renegades fans. I think that's pretty known here, but no hate to them. I live in Arlington when I'm not at college. But anyways, with that being said, what are you expecting in this game now? Because we don't have a lot on the line, but we're potentially playing the team we're going to play in the playoffs, you know? So what's it going to be like, you think?
You need to go ahead and beat them. I know Coach Wade Phillips was talking about potentially resting and stuff like that at the press conference.
He was.
But let's just say you lose that game, let's say they lose that game to Arlington, right? You're going to play them again the following week. And then, granted, it is in Houston, but that means that team has seen you again. They know what you're going to bring to the table, and they're going to try to exploit it. And they're going to try and pull an upset win to get into the championship game. So they gotta be smart. And I feel for Wade Phillips at this point. Like, who do you depend on to make this work? It should not matter who you want to play against in the South Division Championship, whether it is San Antonio or Arlington. You win at all costs. Win. That's what it's about.
Because this would
player goes down, then it's next man up.
It has to. It has to. It's playoff football at this point. You got to do what you got to do to win. And I think that's why this Vegas game was so important, because we showed we can do that. We can rely on other players and other guys to step up and make plays for us and potentially win the game for us. But I like what you were saying, Arlington, about, playing the Renegades twice in 2 weeks. Plus, we already played them at the beginning of the year, 3 times against an opponent in the playoffs that you're going to be playing in the playoffs. Luis Perez, he's been impressing me for Arlington. In the game against DC, 31 for 41, 335 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception against a very good, very solid DC defenders defense. But with that being said, I'm curious what you think about this. But, watching Luis Perez in the XFL 2020, Spring League, USFL, and then now here, about 3 to 4 years of watching Perez play, he's no Jordan Ta'amu. He doesn't have the big play ability, the get on your horse for the first down. So I'm curious what you think about it, but I'm not necessarily too worried about the Perez impact that he's had for the Renegades necessarily. Sure, he's been an upgrade, but I don't think he's going to be anything he's not going to be anything to worry about too much. Sure, he's an upgrade, but he's still beatable. Am I correct in that aspect?
Absolutely, he's beatable. The deal is it's going to be about possession. He had 31 completions, and he gave the ball to 10 different guys. So that means the ball got around in those 31 completions. 7 of them going to Sal Cannella, which had been the connect that they were trying to maintain with their previous quarterbacks in Drew Plitt and Kyle Sloter, especially both him and Sloter coming from the USFL. Didn't quite work out that way. All right. So bringing in a guy like Perez knows how to manage a game. Granted, they had made a difficult comeback. Like, they were down 23-9 going into the fourth quarter. 26-9 going down into the fourth quarter. 17 unanswered points to tie the game up, mostly in part to the offense. They didn't give up. That's one thing that this Renegades team with Perez is resiliency. They're not going to just easily give up the game. They're going to play hard for 60 minutes. And if they need extra time to do it, then by all means, they'll do that. So with this Arlington Renegade team, you can't sit back and say, oh, this is just going to be an easy win. Oh, no. Arlington's coming for the Roughnecks' head. And they're playing at home. And so this is an opportunity for them to say, we'll see y'all next week too. After that, when we're done with you, you're going to be trying to figure out what we got for you come the following week too. Meaning potentially if a win happens. Because that's it. They win, they beat Houston, they're in. They facing them. They're coming back the following week to Houston for to face them in that South Championship.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what's at stake for them. We're not going to really mention anything about the Brahmas because the Brahmas are outside looking in. But case in point, if that were to happen, the Brahmas have faced the Roughnecks twice, and 9-point loss. Everybody remembers the goal line stance.
Yep.
That Hines Ward decided to make, and it didn't get it in. Never punched it in. Never could figure a way to get it in. So, and that was a 9-point game. So that was a 1-score game. And then you had the overtime game on the road. And I'm talking about from Houston's standpoint, on the road. So you have to remember, San Antonio's got some pride to play for it too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going against DC. It's a bit harder.
Yeah.
But then again, it's any given weekend, chaos can get everywhere. Mm-hmm. So that's the one main thing that you can't just literally count anybody out just yet. You got to wait till the games are played and the final score happens.
Mm-hmm. And I know I'm counting my lucky stars that the Roughnecks aren't in a position like San Antonio or Arlington where they need to win to get in. Like, we're already in. You know, I'm keep trying to remind myself that we're already in. We're in the playoffs. So I think that's why I'm not necessarily too worried about this game against Arlington, except for the fact that we may play them again after a week. Now, this would be a huge statement win if Arlington can beat the Roughnecks this week 10. But I know, me personally, I think it's too hard to tell because adjustments can be made between the championship week and then week 10. So I don't really know where to go from there. But with the Brahmas, let's say they do. Let's say the Brahmas somehow get that championship spot. I know you touched on it a little bit, but, you know, they had Jack Cohen, who did over 300-yard passing game. Nick Holley, over 100 yards receiving. It was like we were watching 2020 Nick Holley out there again. Mm-hmm. You know, is this Brahmas team, no pun intended, are they a different bull now that they seem to have revitalized their offense a bit?
So is it bull or is it they're taking the bull by the horns? Is that what we saying at this rate in this season? Are they taking the bull by the horns this time?
Because they look to be finding themselves their offense. Jaquez Patrick, he's been tearing it up. You know, I was a big fan of him in 2020 with the Tampa Bay Vipers, and he's doing the same thing. So they're finding their stuff. What, you know?
I mean, having 130 all-purpose yards is always big here, you know, for San Antonio's case. It's almost like you hate seeing when a former player of yours go to another team and he does exceptional, except as Nick Holley did with the 4 receptions, 105 yards. So, you know, that's a lot at stake for this team, and Cone's confidence is up. But like I said, you're going against a DC team who has been shaky at times, still know how to find a way to win. And they really have nothing to play for themselves either.
Mm-hmm.
They could potentially drop that game and just go to 8-2. And I remember I was having a conversation before the show today about, and I think it was the Horns, not the Horns for it, but Smoking Guns podcast. Mm-hmm. That's on Monday. They said that it'd be different if DC was 9-0 going up to that game, and then you're trying to play for the undefeated season. Then it's different. But they're 8-1. They already got the North wrapped up. Do you want to go back and go against, you know, do I want to play? A lot of people are cheering for, of course, Houston Roughneck fans don't care for real, but I'm like, they would rather see DC beat San Antonio just to get them out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Or it wouldn't matter. And then Houston just go ahead and beat Arlington, and then it's like, we'll go and beat them again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so at this rate in the season, which if Houston does beat Arlington, they will have gone undefeated in the division. So that's another thing to kind of take into into fact here is that you going 6-0 in the division means something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's up to them. See how well they want to. What is your fate at this point?
Mm-hmm.
How do you want to finish?
I like that. Their fate is literally in their hands. They can finish this year off however they'd like to. And I'm not going to lie, I am a little nervous with how Brandon Silvers has been playing recently. But I'm trying to remember, you have the injury. And then in the press conference, he was mentioning stuff about like not being able to practice a lot with the plays that they were running, which I found that a little bit odd. I don't know if that's a personal thing or if he just wasn't able to practice due to injury. But I think we hit the nail on the head, though, that this upcoming game against Arlington, it's a chance to have good karma going into the championship game in 2 weeks. And two, I'd like to remind everyone, this is nothing compared to the chaos going on in the North Division, because my God, I know I'd be sweating bullets if I was a team in the North Division. Of course, St. Louis and Seattle both fighting for their own respective playoff spots. But man, it's just crazy to me that 10 weeks later, we're talking about the Roughnecks being in the playoffs, and we had a good idea it was going to happen, It
was just where it was going to be. That's the main thing. That Houston was going to have a strong enough team, and then they showcased it in the first 4 games. Granted, it was against opponents that were weaker than them, but at the same time, it was you needed to beat them. You're supposed to beat your own division opponents, but had a hard time against the North. Granted, one of those games, it was the day that Brandon Silvers did not play. And I think that was the one game that they centered around Cole McDonald, but they gave him a Brandon Silvers playbook, if you get what I'm understanding.
Yeah,
you get what I mean by
I like how you put that.
They gave Cole Brandon Silvers instead of it being for Cole.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if A.J. Smith was particularly ready to make a Cole McDonald playbook. So now, even with that said, because wide speculation could be Cole McDonald could start. Brandon Silvers could sit.
Mm-hmm.
Get him ready for the home game instead. I know he wants to play, but one major thing here, Cullen, to take apart. Why would you lose on purpose when you can get a bonus if you win?
Yeah, I would get that money.
You want to pass up on a grand bonus for not winning the game?
For what? No
the
good
bonus,
reason.
Yeah, what's the reason to say no to $1,000? If
exactly.
You don't want it, give it to me.
We'll take it.
All right, coach, put me in. I'm ready. I'll take a hit. Let's go. I'll take a hit, knock myself out, and probably be done for the rest of my football career and say, hey, did we win? Yes. Give me that $1,000.
Give me my money.
You know what I mean? Come on. Like, come on now. Like, where are we getting at? And that was crazy to me. I didn't really think about that. I forgot about it. So I can potentially get $7,000 in bonus checks. $6,000. Everybody knows $6,000 is less than $7,000. So $7,000 greater than $6,000.
I know what I'd rather have in my bank account.
Let's go with an extra $1,000. So, I mean, I think it's a meaningful game. And I think I like how the XFL utilizes that. And going into the future, if the checks might bump up a little bit, who knows? Yes, I'm just going wide speculation. But hey, adding an extra $1,000 to your game check don't seem like bad at all, especially when a lot of the guys are there for their families.
Mm-hmm.
And Houston's going to have it good if they win in the South. And then, of course, you got the championship bonus check to go along with that, too.
I know. And the championship's a whole nother can of worms that I hope we can open.
Yes. Yeah,
I
but
hope
but
we
my
will.
point is, you want to continue. You're playing for more. You're playing for the bonuses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so that's what's going to be the case here. You know, I can't wait, man. Like Houston, Arlington, they both match up well. Granted that this time they're not going against Drew Plitt, they're going against Luis Perez, so it could be a different outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's who they have to plan for.
And Donald Payne, he's one of my favorites. He played for the Houston Gamblers last year in the USFL. Like we said at the beginning of the podcast, that's also going to be really big because that's a ball player. Donald Payne, he plays ball real well. But I believe the game is Sunday, correct?
Yeah, they're the first game Sunday.
So, folks, make sure you tune in because it's going to be a preview of the playoffs. We all love playoffs. So this is going to be a preview of the playoffs. We're going to see, can Brandon Silvers get back to his first half self? I know I'm going to be watching that. I've been waiting. We're going to see if it can happen, or are we going to see more Cole McDonald? We don't know. But all we know is win this game, go undefeated in the South Division. And Arlington, I know you're going to agree, we're looking real good for the playoff itself. Don't forget playoff tickets, 2 weeks, going to be right here at TDCU on Saturday. I can't even remember what date it exactly is, but make sure you get your tickets because playoff football is back in Houston, folks. No one's been able to say that. No one's been able to say that.
April 29th, baby.
Got it.
Playoff
April 29th,
here,
folks.
Man. That is an afternoon game at that, too. So, no, excuse me, that's a night game.
Yes. I believe it's around 6.
6 o'clock Central Time.
Yeah, I live for these moments.
Can't wait to see it, man. Can't wait to see it.
So, folks, thank you so much for watching. This was a fun episode. Always happy to report good news on the Roughnecks side. So make sure you tune in on next week's game. And, of course, we'll be back regardless because we're going to be giving y'all coverage every time we move on in these playoffs. So, folks, my name is Cullen Watkins. And who's that right there? Arlington Lane.
Arlington Lane, baby.
Thank you so much for watching. And remember, rough them up, baby. Go Roughnecks. We'll see y'all next time.